Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Right Way podcast. I'm joined by a very good friend, a great bodybuilder, a class coach, and the master of knee veins, Tom motherfucking T. How are we doing, big man?
Mate, what an introduction.
I am
More
too.
importantly, the master of the knee veins. Love it.
Hmm. Mate, I've
That's the
never
most
seen
important
anyone
thing
with
there.
spider webs on their knees. It's wild.
But mate, thank you for having me on, first and foremost. Thank you for inviting me. But mate, we are good. We've just come back from upper, but all in all, mate, we're good. We're feeling good, and we're doing well. We're doing well. Thank you for the introduction. It's always a bit weird. You don't know what to say. Yeah, I'm fine. Everything's going well.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like
obviously,
those vibes when you're like first day of school and it's like, give us a fun fact about yourself. And you're just like, yeah,
yeah,
sweet.
I'm the one that likes Marmite. That's
Yeah.
me.
The last one. How was your session, mate?
Mate, very good. At this point, training is, as you probably with your diet phase, mate, my training is just it's more of a chore. And one thing that I probably didn't haven't liked about prep is the fact that I can't really train how I know I can train. And going into sessions knowing that I can't give it like what I know I can give. If you know what I mean, that's probably the
Yeah.
hardest thing I probably found actually in terms of going into my sessions a bit more draggy and you just honestly just sort of switch off, mate, and do what's needed. And it's obviously with where we're at now, it's just ticking the boxes with training.
Is it more of you having to like pull back on like one intensity and like two how obviously how much weight you're pressing, that kind of stuff? Um
Everything, mate. Everything's being pulled back in terms of intensity, in terms of volume, in terms of what we're doing, exercise selection, obviously. So everything's sort of changed a little bit. So the demand through training is has decreased, and we just really go in there just to sort of stimulate, not annihilate. That's literally it. Sessions last about 45 minutes. That's literally it, mate. Just people don't realize that you don't really need to do that much at this point. People overdo it, but just doing the necessary, mate. It's just pretty boring, mate. Pretty boring.
yeah, it is what it is. I mean, for people who don't know, obviously Tom's in you're in the very back end of your prep, right? You said peak weeks this week or next week?
Yes, mate. I'm 9 days out for my first ever show.
Crazy. Time has flown by, mate.
Mate, I was actually speaking to someone about this. It has for them, but for me, it's felt like somebody said to me, "Oh yeah, it's 24 weeks." I'm like, to be fair, yeah, it's felt like 24 weeks to be honest.
Yeah.
But then again, it has flown by. It hasn't. But yeah, it's honestly, mate, it's been really, really good. It's not dragged at all. It's not like bloody hell. It's been really, really good, mate.
Mhm. Is it everything kind of you expected? Because this is your first prep, right?
First prep, mate. Yeah, first prep. First
So
prep.
how have you found the overall experience so far to what you kind of had in your head? Has it lived up to expectations? Has there been like some bumps in the road? Has it been smooth?
Mate, to be honest, it's been way better than what I thought it would be.
Mhm.
Obviously, we have this perspective of I had this perspective anyway of obviously people coming out of prep, and I've seen people apologize on their Instagram saying sorry if I weren't myself, and saying they weren't didn't enjoy it or they wish they enjoyed it more. And I'm thinking, goodness me, like I really want to enjoy it. And
Mhm.
mate, I can happily say that I've enjoyed every single second of this prep. It has been incredible. My perspective on things of when I went in, I was thinking, goodness me, I'm going to have to everything's going to have to be around this and manage around this. But I found that if you just set that routine straight away, it makes life a whole lot easier. But
Mhm.
it's different in my case because I live with a big family. I live with like 8, 9 people. So at the start of prep, I was thinking, do I need to move out? Do I need to obviously extract myself from the situation? But in actual fact, what I had to do was actually probably look at myself and be like, how can I change to sort of fit my environment and use it to my advantage? And you've probably seen on my story, mate, over the
The
past few
family
weeks
will.
where family walks, morning walking crew, evening walking crew, and to be fair, it's something we can actually touch upon. I think people get into this whole little prep bubble, and that's what I expected me to be in, like this whole little prep bubble where, like, you've probably heard people make like shutting off from their friends and family and creating like a bad relationship with
Mm.
prep. And they always look back and be like, oh, that's something I can change for next time. But I didn't want to do that. I don't want to
Mm.
be that person to be like, oh, I wish I could do that next time. And there's going to be a few things, obviously, but I wanted to create like a positive environment where my friends and family could be like, you know what, Tom might feel like he's in the absolute gutter, but it's not having an effect on me. Like
Mm.
he's still positive around me. He just communicates how he feels, and that's what I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've taken away. So that's my perspective leading into prep. I thought it was
100%.
going to be a lot.
Mm. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I think a lot of people going into like preps or even like a very intense dieting phase, I think you really need to realize like the number one thing is just like you are making this choice for yourself. Like you are
most
putting
definitely.
yourself in this situation, and it is almost selfish in a way, like expecting others to kind of go out their way to just like, you know, live their life for you in a way. Like life doesn't
Hmm.
change for them. You what you're doing is, you know, you've set yourself this goal and you're working towards it. But I feel like, you know, it's very easy for people to kind of go into that mindset of, right, this is going to suck, and now everyone around me is going to experience the suck with me. And I think, you know, if you can set up an environment which is going to be a lot more positive, like you said, with like family walks, integrating people, you know, into the process, it's going to make it so much easier. Because, you know, there are going to be those days where you're going to have low energy. There are going to be those days where your mood drops. And, you know, like you said, with communicating, if you let those people know how you're feeling and you're not just saying like, you know, oh, you know, don't chat to me today, don't do this, all this kind of stuff, people are going to end up resenting you. And that's just
Mate,
going to
that
be so much harder on
you've
yourself.
literally took the words out of my mouth, mate. Like when you're in prep, it's definitely a two-way street um, in terms of in terms of family and friends, where you've got to communicate how you feel
Mm.
for them to invest into you. How can when you go that's what people do really, where they change in prep and they come obviously they put this expectation on themselves and they increase the stress, which is completely understandable. You want to absolutely nail everything, but then again, if you shut them people off, how can you expect them to change when or be there for you? Well, obviously they're going to be there for you, but how can they be there for you when they don't know how to be around you, when they don't know how to be around you when you're a little bit more sluggish, a little bit more mood? You're going to have them days, but if you sort of make it a two-way street, they'll be like, okay, well, Tom's absolutely fine, or Tom's feeling like this. That's how it is, and then they invest into you. Otherwise, they're just going to resent you, and they don't know how to be around you. Next thing you know, you have this sort of like confliction, and it just doesn't really create a good environment, mate. And you got to use things to your advantage. And a lot of that it is a two-way street, definitely.
No, 100%. In terms of shows, how many shows are you doing?
So I'm doing the PCA Midlands on the 10th of September. And then I think I'm doing the NFM UK show on the 24th of September. And then from there, mate, it's just like pick and choose which one there is really. If I get to the finals of the PCA, then I might do that. That's October 15th. But then they've got a show in Stafford where I live on the 8th of October. I think it would be pretty stupid not to do that. So I've at least got like two or three lined up. If I get to the finals, then I'll probably do the finals because obviously it's my last year as a junior. I don't want to look back and be like, oh, I got to the finals. I might as well do it. So I think three or four, mate. Three. Those are the three that are sort of like locked in.
Exciting, mate. Exciting. One thing I was gonna say, mate, is you're one of those physiques where like I saw you, and don't take like I mean no offense by this, but I saw your physique like peak off season, and I was just like, I kind of don't know what he's gonna look like when he's lean. And like some of your shots, which like you look at now, I'm like, how is that the same person?
Mate,
It's crazy.
there's no offense taken, mate, because I thought the exact same thing.
Mm. It
I
is
thought the
wild.
exact same thing, mate, because I was thinking, how is this gonna look, mate? Like, I hold my fat in some weird place around, obviously around the hips normally, mate, but like underneath the armpit, like around the lat area. So I'm
Like
hitting my
your
back.
front lat, like is one of the shots where I was like, "Holy shit, that's
Yes.
that's mad."
So but yeah, mate, I think at the start of this prep, but a lot of that, mate, is down to in the off season, I didn't really look at myself and be like, oh, I hated the way I looked.
Hmm.
I never ever did that. And I haven't throughout this prep even. That's one thing that I have taken away, the amount of people that say to me, oh, I look back and I looked really good at this point, but I actually hated the way I looked. Like
Hmm.
I look back at that, I look at every check and shot that I take, and I'm like, you know what? I'm actually really proud of what I'm looking like at the moment. And if you show me a picture of where I'm at now 2 years ago in my off season, I've been like, mate, I'd love to look like this.
Hmm.
And in peak off season, I never really looked at myself. I'm like, oh, I was big and I'm looking like this. I just made sure that I was getting to the gym. I love training. I bodybuild because I love training. And when I was peak off season, I was strong. I was feeling good. I had obviously going out with my friends and family all the time. Like, I had a really good relationship with obviously going out and stuff. And that sort of led me into prepping a really good position where I could be like, you know what, like, I don't mind taking some like half a year where I
Mm.
can just like sort of dedicate this time to this. And then, but I never really looked at myself and been like, oh, I look really fat and really bloated, like just needs to be done.
It is the right attitude to have like in the off season, because I feel like, don't get me wrong, everyone's going to approach bodybuilding differently. But like you say, like with prep, you kind of have to be set in a certain routine. And that's not me saying that, you can't go out on prep, you can't do certain things on prep, but like you've got to be a lot more rigid with how you
Mm-hmm.
within your day to day. And I feel like, if you're living your off season like it is a prep every single day, and you're not spending time with your family, you're not going out for those meals, it's going to make prep so much harder for
Yeah,
one.
it elevates things because next thing you know, because if you think about it, people live their off season like, yeah, I want to be the best bodybuilder. Like,
Mm.
and I was still nailing most things, but I was still making sure that I was being lenient with myself and spending some time with friends and family. If I wanted to go for a coffee or a cake or whatever, I was doing it. But when you're living your off season, 100%, yeah, you're going to see more progress by all means. But when you go into a prep scenario, it elevates it tenfold because you become even more obsessive, even more down to the T than what you would like what you already were. And this is why these problems happen where people get too invested into this prep bubble because in the off season they're not sort of like they're not lenient with themselves. They don't give themselves that time with their friends and family. And then next thing you know, they head into a prep and they're like even more on it than they already are.
Mm.
So it's just trying to find that balance where obviously you're still managing things in the off season where you're still making progress and you're still getting things done, but you are sort of like, you know what, I can actually enjoy my life. Because guess
Mm.
what? When you enjoy your life, you make more progress. It's
Exactly.
funny, isn't it?
Exactly.
So
And it goes back to kind of what you were saying over DMs with like being present, and as well when you said about like people hating how they look. I think like the bodybuilding community kind of has this thing where it's always like it's the next thing. It's always like, oh, I'm gonna be the next off season is going to be their best. The next cut's going to be the best. I'll be happy when I'm here. I'll be happy when I'm there.
mhm.
And like the biggest takeaway I think I've had from my own process is just like enjoying every moment. Like, and it's such a vital piece of the process. Like, enjoying what you're eating, enjoying going to the gym, enjoying your daily routine. Like, if you can find enjoyment in the small things and you do that daily, it just makes the whole process so much easier on yourself. Because if you stress about all these kind of micro factors, which are, they're not even they're not even worthy of being stressed over, you're
Mhm.
just going to end up, in a kind of negative feedback loop where it just keeps on ending up with you kind of breaking down. And like I've definitely noticed, when it was me in the past, it was always like these small things I would stress about, it would cause me to stress, and then next thing you know, I'm on the phone to Domino's ordering a pizza to like eat away my troubles, and that then leads down a road of, oh, now I feel shit because I've just set a Domino's, and then it's like it just
Mate,
goes
but
on and
then you
on.
got like a bad relationship with food and stuff. Mate, this is what happens, bro. This is what happens. And somebody said to me at the start of prep, they said, the only moment you live is the present. So if you're not enjoying the present, you're actually not enjoying your life.
Hmm.
So there's a little quote for you. And this is why the process of bodybuilding, people they end up not enjoying it and they end up resenting bodybuilding because
Hmm.
what they do is they try and strive for something that's always going to be 2 years away, a year away. I want to be here. I'm going to be happy when this is happening. I was talking to people even before they were starting prep and they were going, oh, yeah, I can't wait for the off season to blow up because I'm going to be in such a lean. But like, mate, you've got to do prep first. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I was talking
Be present, bro.
like
Just
you've got to be, like, it's just, and it's really important, mate, because otherwise, like you said, you spiral out of control, really, and then one thing leads to another, and then leads to another, and then you get people who worry about like sunlight exposure in the morning. Like, mate, like chill out, bro. It's one of those things that will come. So the sun's gonna come up, mate. It's all good. Like, and then you get people who just sort of like, yeah, it's great, but sometimes it's a little bit over the top. Where in actual fact, you're actually putting yourself in a position where, if you're too OCD about things, you're actually putting in a position where you're probably going to regress more than progress. Like I had to be in a position where I've been there as well, mate, where I've literally micromanaged everything. And when I went on board with Christian, it helped me massively. And he was there like, yeah, bro, have 2, 3 off plans a week. And I'm there like, what the hell?
Mm.
Like, mate, it's only Saturday night, Domino's night, mate. Whoa, whoa. And if you actually think about it, mate,
Domino's
a
born.
bit of top. But the thing is, though, mate, like if you think about it, people live for a Saturday night or a Friday night because that's their one night where they can sort of
And
like,
bodybuilding is 7 days a week,
yeah,
like
mate,
365 days a year. So like you need to enjoy the
you
process.
need to,
Otherwise
mate.
you're just resenting every single day. And you're like, why are you doing something which you don't even enjoy? And like
Exactly.
you're just holding yourself back.
But it's something that I learned the hard way, mate. Honestly, I had
Mm.
a really bad relationship with food, and you see a lot of you probably had a lot of clients come to you about it, mate. I've got a lot of clients where they feel like they can't go out and they feel like they've been invited out and they need to manage everything. Like it's 200 calories over, mate. What am I going to do? And I'm thinking, mate, just enjoy yourself.
Mm.
200 calories or 1,000 calories isn't going to make much difference because then you're nailing more than 99% of people
It's a
anyway because
drop
you're a
in the
bodybuilder.
ocean. Like,
Like,
and
mate, the
it's,
fact that you're stressing about it is going to make things 10 times worse.
mm.
Like, and it's just doing it wrong. It's easy. It's so much easier said than done. We can be sat here and somebody can have their own problems, and it does take a long time to get used to have that good relationship. But once you sort of find that relationship where you can still train, you can still eat your 4 or 5 meals a day, or whatever, or how many meals a day, and you can still go out and enjoy yourself, and you find that sort of quote unquote balance, like it is super important because then your longevity in the sport is going to be therefore greater because you found a more sustainable way where you can actually enjoy the process.
Mm. And the thing is, as well, I think everyone needs to realize like each individual, like you are an individual. Every single person's circumstances are going to be different. This person may enjoy doing things a lot different than you do things. And like,
Mm-hmm.
when you see all these bodybuilders and it's all you see every single day, and you're like, why don't I look like this person? Why aren't I living my life like this? That works for that person. They may have been doing this 10 more years than you, like me 2 years ago compared to who I am now. The change is mental. And I think people need to realize that, you know, any development comes as you work through, all the things that go bad in your life and you grow as a person. And you need to realize
Mm-hmm.
that, unless if you put all this pressure on yourself so early, you're most likely you're just going to give it up because you're not going to enjoy it. And I feel like the biggest thing again is just being present and enjoying the process, because as soon as you learn to do that, it makes managing everything else so much easier. And then when it comes to the times when you do need to be a little bit more harder on yourself, then you can be like, right, I have a reason to do this and this is why we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it is hard for people because, like, when you come in, you're a teenager, you're a young person, you're first exposing yourself to bodybuilding, and you're seeing these people saying, "You've got to train this way, you've got to eat this way, you've got to do this, you've got to do that," and then instantly you're put under the pressure of being like, "Okay, well, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that." When in actual fact, like that might be their balance, like you mentioned, they might be doing it for 10 years time where their balance is literally just bodybuilding, and that's fine. That's fine. That's fine by me. But what's made my experience through prep and through this so much easier is that I've had that balance, and then I can come into this prep and be like, well, now I can be like, okay, well, 24, 25, 30 weeks I can be like quite regimented, but I've had that time, and now I can go back to it and I know how to get back to it, sort of thing. But when you first expose yourself to bodybuilding, it's really sort of hard to find like people that express their feelings around balance because all you see, mate, is like you need to train this, you need to train that, you need to
It
eat
has to be
this, you need to,
robot mode 100%.
yeah, yeah, like, and
Meal
you need
plan and it's
like you otherwise like you're not going to make any progress. Like you need to set up an exercise this way, you need to do this, and I'm thinking take a step back a minute. Like, let's just nail the basics of this. And then next thing you know, mate, the best thing ever is when somebody goes, oh, mate, I've made this progress while still enjoying my life.
Hmm.
But that's so good rather than being like, oh, mate, because I've had people come to me and they stress about these little minute things, man. And they're like, you wouldn't be stressed about that if you didn't watch these certain people. But then again, that to that certain person, bodybuilding is they're engrossed in it, which is fine, completely
but
fine.
they need to
But
realize you're not that individual.
exactly. That's what I mean.
And
Everyone's their own individual, and they
exactly.
might
And
find that something might work for them, and something might not work for them. it's all about finding, like you mentioned, it all goes, you sort of find that through the mistakes that you make. And I found that I couldn't be regimented 100% of the time. I am most of the time, mate, 99%. But like, I would have some times where my mum would be like, "Do you want to come for a Sunday dinner?" And I'm there like, "No, no, no. Had a Domino's yesterday. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Can't have two off, can't have two off-plan meals in a
Relax, I had a
week.
cookie dealer.
What are you on about, mate? I've got a cookie dinner." But in actual fact, what I should have done was, you know what? Yeah, because it's not going to make any sort of detrimental effect on my progress. Because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I still basically nailed everything in terms of training and nutrition. And once people find that sort of balance where they can still do stuff like as them as an individual and find out what works for them, by all means, they're going to make more progress over a long span of time. Anyway, that's what I find. But and then what you find is that when they enjoy the process more and they find that balance, then like you said, when they can switch on and they go into a diet phase where they have to be a little bit more regimented and a little bit more adherent, they can do that because they know they've enjoyed their time where they can be a little bit more lenient.
It's again like the same thing applies to prep. Like you see so many individuals when they prep for the first time and they're like, right, I need to be top three. I need to be first place. I need to win my overall. And it's like, go into it with like just in my opinion, and like I believe this when I prep, I will be happy if I just make it to stage, because that in itself is a wild achievement. And I think so many people don't realize that, like the amount of stress, the daily routine, all this kind of stuff, and then leading up to that day, making it on that stage, you've already won. And like, you know, if you put all this pressure on yourself to say you want to come first, say you want to place, if you then don't place, you in your heads, you're like, right, that's 20 weeks of my life gone
Yeah,
for.
exactly. And then guess what? They'll look back at it and be like, I didn't enjoy it.
Hmm.
And then they'll resent it. But
Hmm.
if you set yourself out in a pedestal where you need to be there, I need to achieve this. I need, like, mate, I am as competitive as the next man. I am so competitive, right? I want to go up there and I want to win. I
Hmm.
want to win. But I know if I went into that mindset of being like, I need to win. Otherwise, people go like, my business is going to fall down if I don't win. Like, people just start like collecting these feelings where, in
Yeah.
actual fact, you're on stage. You've literally got to stage, which is
Hmm.
a big, big thing. And whatever comes of that, if you get first, second, third, whatever. And this is why I was there saying, like, if I get to finals, I get to finals. If I don't, I don't. But what I did was I was there like, well, I'm going to do a first show and then I'm going to take it week by week and go from there, see how it goes, see how I feel. And there's no pressure there. Like the fact that I've even made it to stage, mate, the fact that if you said to me 2.5 years ago when we first started following each other,
Hmm.
like 2.5 years ago, yeah, Tom's going to look like this in 2.5 years' time and he might go on stage and do this. Mate, I'd be like, what is this all about? Like, I'd be so proud of myself, mate.
I
And
don't
that's,
think like I think the guy who, like, when you initially started thinking the position you are in now, I don't think you would even be able to
mate,
comprehend. No.
exactly, mate. Not only from a physique perspective, but business,
Hmm.
like mental perspective, like everything, mate. Every perspective, mate. This year has been like, if you said to me this time last year, let alone 2 years, this time last year, mate, you'd be where you are now, mate. I'd have been like, what are you on about? Like,
It
it's
makes me
correct,
so happy, mate. Honestly, it really
mate.
does.
It's but this is what people don't understand, mate. Is that like you said, they get caught up and they go, but I want to be, there. I want to be there. Like, if you actually understand, like, if you don't put the pressure on yourself and you be like, okay, well, if I actually get to stage, that's a win in itself. And then anything that comes from that, it's just an added bonus.
Hmm.
And then next thing you know, you look back at it and you're there like, you know what, I got to stage and I came second and I got this and I got this and I met this person and now I've got like, and then next thing you know, mate, you collect all these sort of positive memories and then you can look back and 5, 10 years to go and you know what, the first time I competed, I absolutely loved it. Like,
Hmm.
I loved every single moment of it. And guess what? And guess who else can look back at it with fond memories? Your friends and family, because they go, mate, yeah, Tom loved it. He was great. Because the amount of people that don't enjoy their first time of prep, mate, yes, obviously the first prep's never going to be perfect. Mine's been far from perfect, or it's been a few things where we've learned about things. But guess what, mate? I can look back at it and be like, you know what? I enjoyed every single second of it. I've not affected my family. I've used it to my advantage that I do live in a big household. It's only made my relationship with my girlfriend or my partner stronger, even though I didn't even think that was going to happen because we were in a really good space beforehand, which is crazy. But it's only heightened everything for me. And I can look back and be like, you know what, it's been so good, and that's a good feeling, mate. Because you get, mate, I was talking to pros, mate, who were going, oh yeah, my first pro season, I hated it. I wasn't this. I was thinking, what is this all about? Like, it's crazy, isn't it? It's mental.
I think we're both very lucky to be so young and both had very good coaches along the way, because I genuinely think like who you learn from is a massive part of like how
Mhm.
you carry your values, how you become a better coach, and how you like experience the whole process. And you know, myself working with Christian as well, like he was one of the first coaches who was like, look, this, yeah, you can do all this, but in reality, mate, your mental is the most important thing. And prioritizing
Mhm.
that, I feel like a lot of people, especially coaches, forget that like these are humans. These aren't like, you have to remember these people you were talking to, they are humans, they're going through everyday situations, real life stress. And it's not just a person on a sheet with a diet plan and a training plan. And I feel like a lot of people kind of overlook that sometimes and kind of just say, right, here's plan, right, do this. Oh, you haven't done this, right, do this next week. And it's like, relate to them, speak to them, get an
That's the
understanding of this person.
But I think that's the difference though with coaches, mate, nowadays. And that's what I've learned. Like you said, that's what I've learned from Christian, where he is so relatable in
Mm,
every way. He's been through loads of life experiences, and obviously he's worked with the vast majority of people where he can understand how people think, what they're doing, and how to manage loads of different people. Obviously, with workload, different things like workload, dealing with different people. Like when you're working with 100+ people every single day, mate, you learn how to speak to people, how to approach people, how they might come across in a certain way, how to calm them down, what makes it work for them. And that's what I've learned with myself, with working with him, is that he knows sort of like how to be with me to get the best out of me, and not only from a physical perspective but also psychologically as well. Like you
mm.
mentioned, loads of people just go, oh yeah, here's this, here's that, come back to me next week, or talk to me about this, and okay, that didn't work. Well, and then they're not relating to the person. How can you try and chip into the person to get the most out of them, not only from a physique perspective and get the most out of them, but also from a psychological perspective? And that's when you really, really know the difference between a coach. And like you mentioned there, with who you're working with, Max, again, another person who's definitely wants to be not only a coach to somebody, but more so as a friend, where you
Exactly.
can talk to them about literally anything. And then next thing you know, mate, if you get a client or any sort of person that can come to you about how they're feeling, what they're going through, mate, you're only going to get to know them more as a person. If I get to know you more as a person, I'm going to have a better plan in place. If I have a better plan in place for you, you're going to see more progress. If you see more progress, I'm happy. If we're
Mm.
both happy, we're going to see more progress. And it all comes down from me getting to know that person, not like from a baseline level,
Mm.
and
And
more as
like
more of an in-depth level.
from personal experience, I've always thought as well, like one of the biggest key factors in someone's growth and someone's progress is just communication between the coach and the client. And like at the end of the day, if your client doesn't feel like in a safe space to be able to communicate, you know, what they're struggling with, you know, in their day to day, because they might feel like, oh, they might get judged, or oh, they're not like a robot. Chances are they're not going to progress. They're going to be
Hey,
lying, and then
mate, exactly, and that's why it's super important. Firstly, straight off the bat, just say to them like, if you can communicate. It's so overlooked, mate, communication, but it's creating that solid foundation where they can feel sort of like safe to talk about things. If you come across saying, okay, you need to do this, otherwise you will not see results, they're instantly creating this sort of like barrier where they're like, well, I need to do this, and then next thing you know, they're leading them down that sort of path they were taking, where being robotic and not having a good relationship. Where if you set boundaries, but good boundaries, where they're like, okay, well, if it goes wrong, tell me. Like,
mm,
I can't get a crystal ball out and see how you're feeling. Tell me how you're feeling so I can go. I'm not gonna have a go at you.
mm,
That's what I'm here for. That's why I'm a coach. It's my job to stress, your job to do. Like, my job is to do all the stressing, but you need to tell me what you're stressing about, how you're feeling, what you're going through, and then I can do all the things to make your life easier. And if they understand that and be like, you know what, this guy's actually really approachable, it makes life so much easier, not only for the
so
coach
much
but also for the client. It's so important. And like I mentioned, with working with Christian for such a long period of time, that helped me massively, because I came from like a really bad place in terms of like eating and stuff, like being so OCD, and he was there like saying to me like, whoa, this is only going to make you regress even more if you're carrying on like this. And then next thing you know, I had a better relationship with food, better relationship.
what was your issues with food?
Mate,
Like how what was
so
your kind of approach?
I came out of a diet phase, mate, and I was worrying about like I was eating these 0 calorie, like, obviously being there, mate, like obviously eat 0-calorie syrups.
Mhm.
Like I was having like a 5-calorie jelly, mate, and I was feeling bad for myself. Like I couldn't have anything off plan. Like honestly, mate, it was the worst thing ever. It could put, I wouldn't obviously put it as like an ED or an eating disorder, but it was so bad,
Relationship
mate.
with food is very
Yeah,
tough.
mate, it was so bad, mate. Like I couldn't even like I'd look at Domino's and be like, if I have that piece of food, but I'm literally going to be fat the next morning. And if I'd be scared to get on the scales. Like, mate, it was really, really bad place. And a lot of that came from me being over restrictive and just being like, I need to be so robotic. Because my first exposure to bodybuilding was, you need to be like this, you need to be like this, you need to be like this. And that's what I did. And next thing you know, mate, it ended up leading me down a route where I was in a really bad spot. And the next thing you know, mate, how Christian going, mate, whoa, 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 whoa. And then I started, and then now, mate, I couldn't really be in a better position. He's helped me massively. So
Yeah. I wanted to touch on kind of like how you got into bodybuilding, because I know you had a rugby background and I know why you initially went on PEDs, but I feel like your journey is a lot different to other people's, journey of like deciding to jump on. So I think it'd be good to touch on that if you're all right with that, mate.
yeah, mate, of course. So played rugby.
Mhm.
Rugby was I've got a really obsessive sort of behavior where if I get involved in something, I'm either sort of all or nothing. And so with rugby, I was exactly like what I am with bodybuilding. So with bodybuilding now, I make sure that I nail everything, but I still have that sort of balance. But with rugby, it was there like I'm not training twice a week. I'm training 5 times a week. Like
Mhm.
I'm not doing the usual Tuesday, Thursday. And basically, I used to live in Exeter, where I went to a college which was primarily based around rugby, and within Devon, the main sport is rugby. So
Mhm.
I came to the Midlands in Stafford, and next thing you know, mate, I go to a college where they don't even have a rugby team, and I'm thinking, my whole life is to be literally like, honestly, mate, like going from a chance of playing with Exeter Chiefs and doing all this sort of stuff, going to a college, and they're like, yeah, we haven't even got a rugby team. So that sort of instantly sort of kicked me in the gut. And then I went through college and I was playing this awful rugby standard. And then I ended up going playing for Lichfield and Burton, which is probably the best around here. And then playing for Midlands. So I ended up playing for a really good sort of standard around here. And then next thing you know, I knew I reached my ceiling in terms of what I could do around here. Um, so I ended up looking elsewhere in terms of what I could do. And next thing you know, I've always loved the gym in terms of rugby. And then I sort of fell into this sort of bodybuilding where I went to the gym and I've always been pretty insecure with how I looked in rugby. Like I've always been like a big second row flanker, as a blindside flanker. So
Do you remember what like your first exposure to bodybuilding was? Like the
mate,
first thing you saw?
honestly, mate, guess from what I went through. Guess.
Um, See, when I always think about it, I just think like David Laid, like aesthetics. Kind of, was it through? What was it through? Like socials, or was it just through like you
Mate,
wanted to get better and bigger and it?
so
And
I went through. I think the first person I sort of saw was it was the AJ Morris
yeah, yeah.
Cuba
Mhm.
trained by JP. Like people, and I remember watching, and it came up the other day, which is so weird. The AJ Morris show day vlog, like show day, and him in doing his prep series and stuff. And I remember I watched it, mate, and I was there like, bloody hell, like, this guy loves body. Obviously, I didn't know that he's been bodybuilding for literally all these years. Like we said, everyone's been going through it. So my first exposure was, you need to be doing this, being optimal, doing that,
You went
set up
from
on this.
0 to 100
Mate,
straight away.
honestly, I went from 0 to 100. Then I went to Cuba, and then Cuba was doing his prep, and then next thing you know, mate, he's there like, you need to be doing this. And then I went to train by JP, and then I signed up for his thing, and then next thing you know, mate, I set up my own diet phase. So I
Mhm.
was there like, you know what, I need to be in a lean spot so I can grow. Didn't know about coaches at this point, and I dieted myself. So I dieted myself. I lost, I think it's about 45 pounds in 18 weeks. So looking at it from a perspective, I did really well, but I didn't know what a refeed was. I buried myself into the ground. I was doing about an hour's cardio a day.
Training
Um,
must have been through the roof.
Mate, honestly, mate, it was horrendous, and it was absolutely horrendous. And then next thing you know, I started getting some really bad side effects of like not being myself and stuff. And then I ended up going to for about a good 4 months. Obviously, you get libido issues and stuff. And like I mentioned, I didn't even know what like the diet break was, or I just literally buried myself into the ground. Like, more is more, more is more. And then next thing you know, I got really obsessive with food, and like I just mentioned. So the next thing you know, I went to the doctors and they said, "Oh yeah, we'll take a blood test, blah blah blah." And then my testosterone came back at 1.2 nanomole, which, if you don't know, the natural range for a male is between 8 and high 20s, low 30s. And the doctor actually said to me, like, you're not even on the male scale. And I was 20 at this. I was 21 at this point, and yeah, it came back at one.
What was your initial reaction to that? Like, how did you like process that
It
at the
was, it was, it was honestly, mate, it was probably the worst time of my life.
time?
Honestly, like in terms of like where I was at from a psychological perspective, I didn't know what was wrong. And then obviously with libido, mate, I've got my current partner now where like,
It was
you know what I
affecting
mean?
the
Like,
relationship.
mate, honestly, like she was there like thinking that I was off with somebody else. My mum was like, "But Tom, obviously you don't know what mood you're in. Like you can be from like really high, really, really low. Next thing you know, my family's worrying about me. My girlfriend thinks that I'm kind of really all over the place, mate. Like, and they were there, like, go to the doctors and just see what's wrong. So I took a blood test. Testosterone came back, like I said, at 1.2 nanomole, which is literally in the fucking dirt. Excuse my language. And from there, mate, I don't know if you've been with the NHS, but from there, mate, it was just an uphill battle where come back next month, regularly exercise, do this, do that. And I'm there like, okay, I'm doing all that anyway. Like I sleep well, I track my food, I eat a good amount of food. Like, and then next thing you know, mate, it came back like 3 nanomole, 4 nanomole, 5 nanomole, 6 nanomole, 7 nanomole. And then I remember being in Wales with Perrin and all the boys, and being in my gym session with in Gar Gym, and the doctors rang me and they're like, "Congratulations, Tom. You're in the natural range now, 8.7. You're everything's fine now. Come in for a consultation. We'll make sure that everything's set up for you." Okay, and I'm there like, okay, I've been feeling like this for 11 months now, and it was at that 11-month mark where I went to go see an endocrinologist where they specialize in hormones. And honestly, mate, like that just sort of like writ things like way he was like, "Yeah, wait another 6 to 12 months," and I was there like, "I cannot wait another 6 to 12 months." So I looked into TRT, and I went on TRT instantly, really, and I self-prescribed my own TRT. So I went on TRT, and ever since then, obviously, I wanted to pursue natural bodybuilding at that time. So I was loving bodybuilding at that time, just sort of exposing myself. And then I actually messaged like the natty federations, and they were like, "No, you can't do it." And I'm like, decent. So but the next thing you know, mate, obviously I got a coach, and then it sort of led to the other. But yeah, my actual first exposure to PD, and I actually ran TRT for numerous amounts of months, nearly actually a year, before actually going to a super physiological range of androgens. And so I spent like a year of my life being hypogonadal, where my pituitary gland in my brain basically shut down, and then yeah, the next thing you know, it sort of fired up, got normal, everything was all right, everything back on track. And then I made the decision to be like, well, I want to be good at this bodybuilding stuff, and my total androgen load hasn't even been that high. Like people say to me all the time, like, "What is it now?" And I'm there like this, and they go, "Oh, that's not even that high compared to most people." And like, yeah, well, my goal is to always try and get the most, and that's where I do actually look at Trained by JP and people like this, and they always say try and get the most out of the least, and I will always do that. I will never push like I have a sort of weird thinking about it, mate. Like I have like I'm not a pro yet. I've not even competed yet on stage. So why would I take that?
There's no point, mate. There is really no point, and I definitely think it is the smartest approach to go because, as well, like you never know how you're gonna react to certain.
Exactly, mate. And I have this sort of thing, mate, where I spend most of my money on my health, and people are there like, "What? You take 20 pills a day?" And I'm there like, yeah, because like I'm prioritizing my health. I've been through a phase of my life where my health wasn't good, and I didn't even realize what was going on in my body. So I make sure that I'm getting my bloods pre-prep, middle of prep. I'm going to get my blood straight after. I'm going to get an ECG. I'm going to make sure that I'm getting all these. And I cannot recommend like prioritizing your health for it's so important, mate. But yeah, I would with any sort of diet phase, I recommend always getting a coach, because that's something that I wish I did, because I ended up sort of burying myself into the ground to the point where I went hypogonadal and my body literally could not produce any form of testosterone itself.
Yeah,
So
not ideal. It's when I had the initial consult call with Christian when I was going to go enhanced, it was the one thing that kind of stood out to me where I was just like, I wanted to do it and I wanted to be as healthy as possible. And he kind of like listed how expensive kind of all this stuff was going to be. And I thought to myself, realistically, am I in a financial position to do this at the moment? No. And two, I was in it for the wrong reasons, but like yourself, if I ever was to go down that route, and I'm not going to lie, I said this on a previous podcast, the thought has re-entered my brain. Obviously, you know, when you're surrounded by this industry, it's definitely going to happen. And there is going to be times where you're going to be like, no, I don't want to do it. And then there's going to be times where it's just like, you know, yeah, maybe. Still wouldn't be for at least, you know, 2-3 years. But the point is, if I was to ever go down that route, I would still want to do it the healthiest way possible, because there's so many people who do it at such a young age. And I've heard so many horror stories of, you know, people going on forums and they just start using a cycle that pros are on, and they don't
It's
understand how
crazy.
to counteract all the side effects of it. They don't understand the effects it has on the mental side of things. And they don't, if you don't have a coach and you don't have anyone to speak to directly, the amount of times where they'll just keep it in on themselves, and they're just, you know, it's just a matter of time until you implode essentially.
Mate, it's so important. So, well, you just seen literally, I went into a diet phase and look what I did to my body. Just a
Yeah,
normal diet phase
it's
without a
crazy.
coach. Imagine exposing yourself to androgens for the first time without a coach. It would be stupid. And like when I went into this, obviously I sat down with my mum and my family. My family all know about it, mate. When I went on TRT and I was there, and they were there like, "We're going to be taking this," and I'm there like, "Yeah, but this is the," and then I actually said to them the way the NHS prescribe it and what the side effects are if they did that. And I was speaking to the endocrinologist and they were saying, oh, they would do X amount every X amount of weeks. And they're like, well, what about the estrogen levels? Because at this point, I wanted to become a really good coach. I wanted to get into coaching. So I
Did
was
they kind of
learning.
look at you like, shut up, mate? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
they
So I
always
was,
undermine it.
yeah. And I was talking about like gynecomastia and obviously all that sort of stuff when they, yeah, all that sort of stuff, like estrogenic side effects and what it would affect me being a bit younger and stuff. And they were there like, that's something we just deal with later on down the line. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if I get gyno, that means they're gonna put me on an AI. That means it's gonna shut my estrogen down, make me feel even worse. And next, like,
Potentially
do you
pay
see
for
what I mean?
gyno
Yeah,
surgery.
exactly. So they don't honestly, and then that sort of tipped over the edge for me. And I was there like, I was learning all these things, and I came back and I was like, even my mum was there, like, yeah, you need to be doing this yourself, not yourself, but either get a coach and do it the most healthiest way possible. And I can happily say, hand on heart, that I've done everything to the most healthiest possible. Also, we know that it's not healthy. Let's just say that out there. We know it's not healthy,
Bodybuilding in
but
itself isn't healthy. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly. But I know that I do everything I possibly can do to make sure my health is in tip-top condition. And up until this point, with where I'm at now, everything has been absolutely perfect. And I do hear some horror stories, mate. You see people with horrendous acne and blood's coming back, and they're absolutely horrendous. And they don't even. They go, "Oh yeah, what's that? Oh no, it's all right. I'll just take this." And the next thing you know, they take more, and um,
There's even
it's really,
coaches out there who have such
mate.
a lack of knowledge. And I think just because, you know, you're on a cycle and you're being coached by someone, that doesn't give you the right to start coaching other people, because there's such a difference between, you know, just taking someone through a diet phase, but then, you know, you're telling them to use certain drugs. And if you don't
Mhm.
understand the health logistics, all this kind of stuff, you really need to realize like you are playing with someone's life at that point. It's not.
Exactly, mate. Exactly, and it's a big thing, and that's where you're where we say like that's where your care as a coach. That's where you get that's again that's another thing that separates you from the pack really. Where your care is like I remember somebody coming on board and they were there like they came from a coach and and I said to them, "Have you got your bloods done recently?" And they're like, "I don't even know what bloods are," and they've been on gear for like literally a year straight, mate. Haven't even been in a health phase or been in a TRT phase, and luckily they were all right. But it just made me realize that, mate, like the first thing I asked this person was how are your bloods, where your health substats, and he was like, oh yeah, I take a fish oil, and I'm thinking, what is this? It's honestly, mate, it's laughable. It is
Yeah,
laughable,
no, it
mate.
is crazy.
Like
Like,
it's crazy. It's mental, and I'm thinking that's the difference right there. And the fact that they've come to me and they can see that I care about my clients is a really good thing that I like to portray. Like, mate,
mhm.
I'm there like saying to people like, you need to take this, you need to take that, and even if you are considering, like, you need to consider all these different factors as well, like fertility, all these different things. And mate, that was going through a time where I had to go through this thing about fertility and stuff, and I mentioned that I have a partner, and like, mate, I was like 21 years old, like going through all this, and like, it you aren't yourself.
Mhm.
You aren't yourself, mate. Testosterone is what makes a male at the end of the day. And from a psychological perspective, mate, it buries you to the ground, mate, knowing that why am I acting like this? I'm not being myself. And it was a really hard time in my life. Maybe I can look back and be like, you know what? I did the best thing for me. I've got my supportive family around me. Like I mentioned, everyone knows. So it's not like I was hiding anything, which a lot of people do as well. And I did my research. I got
And
a
you've
really,
learned
really
from
good.
first-hand experience, which is
Exactly, mate. Exactly.
there's always a silver lining. Don't get me wrong. Of course, it isn't ideal what you went through, but I mean, people may come to you with similar situations. It probably
Mate, I've
it
got a
was a
lot,
trigger.
mate. I've got a lot of clients that are on TRT, mate, prescribed TRT, through like clinicians and clinics and stuff. And a lot of people they're like, oh, I've got the same issue, mate, and they're like, oh, I've got 3 or 4 clients, mate, that have gone through the exact same issue as myself, and like I know exactly how they feel, and nobody knows how it feels. Like, and it sounds really sort of like oh yeah, we're
Nobody
different.
understands.
Yeah, nobody understands. But mate, honestly, I reached out to a guy called Jack Kennedy. He's been my client now for over a year, and he was putting out on a story, and I was like, mate, I know exactly how you feel because I've been through the exact same thing. And the next thing you know, he got coached by me. Now a year later, he's in a really really good position. But it's really hard to actually explain how you feel in that certain time because you don't even know how you feel. And
Emotions all over the place. You don't really understand what's
yeah,
going on.
mate, and this was what's probably managed prep really well for me as well because like now I know I basically am more present with how I feel and stuff. And now I know, okay, well, I've been through that where I didn't even know how I feel. I do feel a little bit crap now, so I sort of know like how to get over, like how to think about things and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there always is a silver lining about things, but I'm not going to dwell on it, mate. It did suck. But then again, obviously now I'm where I'm at, and I'm very very happy with where things are at. So yeah, that's the story of. If you actually scroll back on my Instagram, mate, I made like a 10-minute reel on it, being like put it out there, man. Like, yeah, I'm going to see this has happened. And it actually,
Mm.
I've always had to be honest with my journey and stuff.
It's
And
the
that's
best way, and I always think like I went through a change where I I think on Instagram it's very easy to fall into the ball pit of like, especially when you're a coach, that you want to be 100% with everything because you want to lead by example and all this kind of stuff. But I really do feel like there is value in showing that kind of vulnerable side and the struggles you have, because at the end of the day, right, you can be the most educated person, you can learn everything possible, and you can follow everything to a T, but like people are going to buy into you if they can relate to you. There's so many coaches out there. Everyone knows the same information, but like Christian is a key example. Like he is himself. He knows how to be vulnerable, and people reach out. People relate to that, and that's
Mhm.
it's such a important thing in an industry where everyone kind of expects everything to be such a robotic way. And if you can still show the progress you're making alongside that, it makes people feel more comfortable in themselves, and they feel like, oh, okay, I can still do this and I can still progress. Because I went through a phase where all I used to do, and I went through like an unfollowing spree, especially when I was about to go enhanced. I followed a load of IFBB pros, and every single day all I'd see is them sticking to a plan, a motivational video, all my meals are in, posing, this kind of stuff. And you start relating to that and you're like, why aren't I like these guys? Why am I like messing up? I'm never going to be like this. And it's you need to kind of control your own environment, because otherwise your
Mhm.
mindset gets so twisted and you start that kind of cycle again of beating yourself up, and it's just a never ending kind of road of that. Moving
Exactly
on.
that.
Oh,
Exactly that. Exactly that. Couldn't have
mhm.
explained it any better.
Another thing I wanted to touch on, obviously, you've just joined Christian's team, which is unbelievable, mate. When I saw that announcement, it was one of those things where I was just like, I love seeing people, especially like close friends and just anybody in life, when they truly have a passion for something and you see them reap the benefit of that. I love that. And for you as a coach, like seeing how you've developed over time, and how your business is picked up and you've got yourself to where you are now, and then to see that happen, I think for a lot of coaches coming up in the industry, mate, especially young coaches, you are in a position where a lot of people want to be. So I feel like there would be a lot of value in kind of understanding how you got to that point. First thing I want to ask you is, when did you find out? What was your initial reaction?
That's so weird because I've got to put a question box up and somebody actually asked that question. How
Mhm.
did you react? So it all happened. It all happened pretty spur of the moment, mate. It makes me get like goosebumps now even thinking about it, mate. It's crazy. So he messaged me saying, "Do you want to meet up with Tim at B Modified Gym in Derby?"
Mhm.
And I was like, "Yeah, mate." Obviously, he wanted to come see. So he made it out like he was going to come see me with prep, and Tim was with him. And then, I get there, mate, and he goes, "Yeah, we'll sit down inside." Didn't even say hello. Literally, mate. He goes, "Yeah,
Like
we'll sit."
business.
He goes, "Yeah, we'll sit down inside." I'm like, "Okay, mate, that's cool." So I sit down inside, and literally the first thing he says to me was, "I want you to be a coach with, um, I want you to be a coach."
Mhm.
And with me, essentially. You and Tim, I want you. And the first thing he said was, "I don't want you working for me. I want you working with me." And I was
I
instantly,
love that.
mate. And the first things first. Like I remember being on a consult call with the Physique Collective, and he was doing. You might have been on it, and it was like a bit how to grow your online coaching
I was on
business.
that call. I
And somebody asked him, "Would you ever get a second coach?" And
and he said never.
he said categorically, "No, I will never be a coach that has another coach under me because I know for a fact nobody cares more than me, nobody invests more than me, and nobody provides the same service as me." Obviously, that was never my intention, but instantly from the get go, I knew that he never wanted a coach. And then I went to the coach convention and he got asked the same question. And he goes, "The fact that you even asked that question to me, like, is about, like, I would never, ever even consider it." And I was like, "Okay, well, it's not, again, it was just like another question." And then next thing you know, mate, out of the blue, he goes, "I want you to be a coach with me
Mhm.
under the umbrella of Team Coach by Christian." And honestly, mate, my reaction was, I can't even explain it, disbelief. Um,
Did it take you
like,
a while to kind of get words together, kind of thing?
yeah, it was one of the moments where I was speechless, mate.
Yeah.
I was just sat in this gym, mate, and I was thinking, what have I just been asked? And he goes, "Is that a yes?" And I'm there like, "Bro, yes." And instantly, mate, he was there like, "The reason why I brought you on is because you're tailored by Tom and Tim's the physique specialist. We will not change that. The reason why we're going to bring us three together was to, obviously it's going to be under the team umbrella of Team Coach by Christian, but you're the coach that I want to bring on because of what you've done. You're a coach, what you've done as well." And that's why it works so well, mate. He's not been like, "You work for me, you do this, you do that." He goes, "If there's ever an issue or anything, if you want," and it's more like a team, mate. And it's such a good environment to be in. And in terms of that, mate, it was just overwhelming. I'm privileged. I'm grateful. And for somebody as Christian, who is looked upon as like providing the best service within, just one of the best coaches in the UK. And he's there like saying to me stuff like, "I'm one of the best up and coming coaches in the country. I'm this and that." And I'm thinking, whoa, mate, you have to fucking slow down here, mate. Like he's saying all these things, and he's saying to me like, "I've got people to look at you and see what you think about you." And they said, "Yeah, and I'm thinking, he's got people like all these different things, mate. And it was just really overwhelming experience. 'Cause it's like, as a up and coming coach, you wanna impress these coaches with
Mhm.
what you do. Yeah, you really want to, you especially when it's your own coach as well.
Of
As
course,
you
yeah.
know, like you want to impress your own coach, and not only from a physique perspective, but also from a business perspective. I want to show Christian that I'm a really good coach as well. Like he coaches me, like Tom's a good coach, and next thing you know, mate, all of a sudden, bang, he's been talking to people about me, asking people questions, "What do you think of Tom?" And everyone's there like, "Yeah, Tom's great, Tom's great, Tom's great." And it was really overwhelming, mate. Really, really overwhelming. And I was just, yeah, sat in my car, welled up a little bit, to be honest, around my mum. And my mum was like, "What is going on?" And yeah, mate, probably one of the best experience. On it, like I said, mate, it makes me speechless now even talking about it. But
Because
you
I
mentioned
remember
like,
me and you talking in DMs, and I remember you saying at a period of time where you were telling your family you were coaching, and they were kind of expecting you to get another job at some point, right?
yeah, mate. So yeah, honestly, mate, I've had to. I was actually probably about a year ago, actually, I was thinking of getting like another job on the side, going back to my family business, which was what I did before. And I was having to think about what a job I want to do for a job. Do I go to Do I actually go to university? I don't know. I was doing all these things, mate, and I was like, you know what? Like I mentioned, I've more of this obsessive behavior where, like, if I do anything, I want to look back and be like, I gave it my all. And I just had like a little bit missing where I felt like I didn't give my all to it. And it was because I was, like you mentioned, I wanted to perceive online that oh yeah, the usual check-in shot and this and that, and it had to be perfect. And I didn't want to be that online coach.
Yeah.
I did not want to be that online coach. Like, I want to be a guy who's relatable and who's been through a journey that people can understand.
Mm.
And I think that's been a big part. Like I mentioned in my off season when I was looking the way I was, like I didn't care if I posted this and that about me posing, me doing this, me doing that. And I actually look back at through my archives recently and I was there like, mate, I used to post everything. Like and I didn't care. I still don't now. And that's probably a real big reason where at the start I was thinking, okay, I need to come across this perfect online coach where I'm telling my clients are doing really well, this and that. And then next thing you know, I actually talk about not feeling good one day and not liking the way I look and having like a bad day in the gym or whatnot. And then next thing
But
you know,
these are
people
real
tell,
life experiences, and this is
yeah, mate,
this is
exactly.
a valuable thing that like the industry is always is like, oh, I've progressed, oh, this is my best physique shot, this is, oh, I've
Mhm,
aced my meal plan, and it's like that's great to see. But what people really want to see is like, how do you deal with stuff when you struggle?
mhm.
Because that is the stuff no one talks about. That is such an important factor. And this is why so many people have eating disorders, why so many people struggle with their physique, why people always, oh, I'll be happy when I'm this, I'll be happy when I'm that. And it's always the next step, or it's always when I get to this pedestal. And it's like you can just enjoy life and this
Exactly,
process. And it's
exactly. So
so
it,
valuable, man.
that's the thing, and it's just yeah. So that happens, and then everything ever since then, mate. I was doing pretty well. Like even the business was picking up really well before that, doing really well, and then it just kept like sort of building momentum, and I found out that whatever I was doing was working. So the next thing you know, Christian was just there like boom. I literally didn't even like hint it to me or anything, and they just say like, "Yeah." I'm thinking, Jesus, man, like it's just pretty crap. I'm in a very privileged position. But then you look back and you're there like, have I given everything? And I'm there like, well, yeah, I have done. I have done those things, and like it, yeah, it's just I
I'm
think
so
when
happy that you have that attitude, mate, because it's very rare, and especially in this sport, I think like you can be so hard on yourself. You're always in the mentality of like, oh, did I go to all out failure? Did I nail my nutrition to a T? Did I get the most out of my day? And to hear you actually say, yeah, I've given it my all and I'm happy with where I'm at, it's such a good thing because like so many people can be so hard on themselves, and it's always like I said with the pedestal thing, it's always the next thing. And just taking a moment to be present and to be appreciative of all the hard work you've put in, and
that's
it's
it yourself, mate. People
fruition.
don't realize, people don't actually big themselves up. And sometimes it's actually really important to do so. Like they can finish a day and be like, you know what, I'm actually really proud of myself today.
Mm,
Like, I've done this, I've done that, I've done that. People go, oh yeah, well, what's the next thing to do? What?
mm,
And then they look back and they're like, oh, I'm buried and burnt out. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, because you haven't actually realized how much you've done.
mm.
And that's what my girlfriend has helped me out massively in, mate. Where actually Christian asked a question on his podcast and he goes like, well, what's the cost of all this? Like, what's the cost of you being where you're at? And mate, I can happily say that the cost of mine is not having a good relationship with my partner. Like when I'm out for a walk at 8 o'clock at night and I'm getting back to 10 form clips.
Mm.
And the next thing you know, mate, I get back and she's there like, oh, that was a nice walk. And I'm there like, mate, doing that for 2 years straight,
Mm.
going out, going away, doing your check-ins, waking up early, doing your check-ins, everything's prioritized around getting back to messages, getting back to this, getting back to that. That's probably the cost of it all. But you learn along the way the limitations, and now I can find I can mention this balance in terms of work life where I'm prioritizing my relationships, but I'm also providing a really good service because I think you have to do you have to sacrifice from the start, and that's what people don't understand. Like I was grafting, mate, and in the moment I didn't feel like I was, and I didn't appreciate how much work I was putting in. And people always ask me, "Oh, mate, I actually had a message. Oh, how did you do that with Christian?" And I was there like, you know what, mate, I'm actually gonna get the message up so you
Yeah.
can see. So I remember who messaged me.
Mm.
Um, and they're like, "How have you done that?" And I'm there like, you know what, mate? I said, hard graft for 2.5 years, building a good name, trying to be really good at what I do, investing in myself and surrounding myself with good people, investing a lot of money into myself and also my clients, working the hardest I possibly could and provide the best service, strive to be better every single day. And Christian has seen that in me. So it's not just a one day thing. Like this was, to be fair, mate, it wasn't even expected. That's the thing.
Mm.
So I was just doing what I was normally doing, where I'm trying to be the best coach I possibly can do, care about my clients, trying to provide a really good service, doing all these things. The next thing you know, it sort of all of a sudden sort of popped up, and it was really overwhelming because it's like I think you mentioned it on your story. I think it was today where like you're surrounded by people now who get you, and it's like me now where I'm working with somebody that's seen how much work I've put in. Because it's really easy, mate, to have our job, and they go, "Oh yeah, he works from home. It's really, really easy." Like, "Oh yeah, he'll do this, he'll do that." But mate, I've been there, mate. My family, they're like, "Oh yeah, he works from home. He'll just he'll take you there. He'll
Yeah.
do the
Yeah.
2 hour round trip because he works from home." But like now, I've actually got someone there who's seen my progress, and he's gone. He's actually put so much hard work, and it's really nice to be like, you know what, like appreciative of that,
Mm.
like, and it's really that's probably what happened most, mate. Like I've always had a supportive network around me, but sometimes I do think, oh yeah, Tom's working from home. It's easy, like
Mm.
when actually, in actual fact, it's really, really not, as you know. So, um, yeah, mate, it's still very privileged, very grateful, speechless. But
Yeah.
yeah, for any sort of young up and coming coaches, I would say I've been in your position. I've looked at other coaches and I've looked at how they've got there. And the biggest thing I would say was look at what people do, look at what works, and put your own spin on things. Make you relatable.
Don't
Make
copy everyone else's content.
Yeah. So like don't copy someone else's content just because their content did well. Put
Mhm.
what you want to put up. Okay, very, very generic. Put what you want to put up because guess what? It's going to relate to at least one person out there, and it's going to help one person out there. But put your spin on things. How can you make things individual to you? And if you look back at what I've put up, mate, okay, in terms of the content I've put up, it's not just all training clips and training clips and training clips. I'm talking about a train, but I'm talking about how I can make my training better for me. And then somebody goes, "Oh, I'll try that," and then they'll go, "Oh, I tried that and it worked really well. Tom must know more." So next thing you know, they get an inquiry through and they go, "Oh, I tried this of what you said on your post, mate. It worked really well." And then they're like, so that's how it all sort of kickstarts. You need to talk about your own journey. People do not invest into your business before investing into you as a person first. They always have to invest into you as a person first, and that's super important. So just work your ass off,
Mm.
and provide the best possible service and become a really, really, really good coach.
Fantastic. Do you want to get into some questions, mate? Because to be honest, I felt like I could just talk to you all day.
Mate, let,
I
let,
feel
let,
like
let,
it's just going to go on and on otherwise.
let's do it. We'll make it. I don't know how long you want to be here for, mate. So we'll keep them like sort of quick fire,
No,
mate. But
I'm
I've got
easy. To be fair, mate, I've only got like one question, so I mean, I'll get mine out of the way. I swear I screenshot it. 1 second. Where is it? Oh God. So come on, where's the question box? There it is. Someone said helpful tips heading into a long ass gaining phase, how to get over body image throughout that phase.
so firstly, understand that you are going to get a little bit soft. Nobody got big without getting soft.
Mhm.
Guaranteed facts. But focus on the reason why you're bodybuilding in the first place. You probably love training. Your training is going to be in a really, really good spot, and you're going to be prioritizing what you probably started, the reason why you probably started building bodybuilding. In terms of body image, like I mentioned, mate, I had that sort of disconnect where I didn't really care what I looked like. All I did was I wanted to get into the gym, I wanted to get stronger, I wanted to lift weights that I never lifted before. But it's really easy for me to say that and be like, oh yeah, just worry about trying to get
Saying
a
that
three
in
plate
itself,
Smith
mate,
press.
that's something I would say. Like, I remember a massive switch in mentality I had. Like, don't get me wrong, I didn't push up super, super high, but for me to get to 85 kilos at the time, I hated how I looked. But I had a switch in me where I was like, right, I don't really like how I look right now, but realistically, I'm the strongest I've ever been, and my training's flying. And having that switch where you kind of you switch your focus on right on from the right. I don't really like how I look right now, but I'm training the best I ever have. And I know this is going to lead to more muscle and this is going to result in a better look overall. If you can have that switch in mentality and realize what you're doing in the moment is going to make you look better later down the line, it makes it a lot easier to accept.
Again, and this is something that Christian says. Nobody cares what you look like.
Hmm.
Nobody cares what you look like at all. Okay. Obviously, the only person that does is yourself. So if you find yourself getting into an uncomfortable position, people can manage things. You can hold that scale weight for a little bit. drive training performance up, make that look a little bit better if you feel uncomfortable, and then drive. Then when you're in a comfortable position, put on a few more kilos over a period of time. So firstly, being comfortable with having that switching mentality of understanding that you are going to be in a really good position where you are going to see the most progress in your physique, and that's the really really important thing. You're in a phase where you are going to make the progression that you want to see within your physique, and it has to be done.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I'd also say, obviously, like going through a priming phase, making sure you're in a good starting position. So, your appetite's in a great place, your digestion's in a great place, so you can push food for as long as possible. Because if you're starting at a point where you've already got higher body fat levels, you're going to be more uncomfortable with the look sooner on, then chances are you're going to call it, quits. Earlier in the process. And as well as that, I know it sounds corny because we're both coaches, but sometimes actually having a coach, someone to keep you accountable, someone to kind of give you that support when you're going through that process can help a lot. Because especially like through, I'm sure you've gone through a bulk. And did you ever go through like did you ever run a bulk on yourself?
Yeah, mate. Yes, I ran a bulk and then I went into that diet phase, and then it wasn't looking good, bruv.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's very easy when you're in charge of your own calories. You kind of get to a point where you're like, right, okay, I'm feeling a bit small. I'm gonna increase food really, really quickly here, and it leads to poor digestion. You're going to be very uncomfortable with how you look. The main thing I'd say to people is don't just don't just chase the scale weight. There's no need to do that. Focus on your training performance increasing over time, and when that starts to plateau, then start looking at increasing your calories and go from there.
Focus on what actually builds muscle tissue, training performance.
Yes, sir.
So I've actually got a few questions, mate. I've got 1% battery this, so it's all good. But how have you had any life goals that have changed in the past couple years?
You go first. I'm gonna have to think about this.
So life goals in terms of, honestly, I'd say have an even more balanced life
Mhm.
in terms of outside of bodybuilding. This prep has made me understand that I do miss out on quite a lot when I thought I didn't, and I thought I was like, oh yeah, I had a really good balance, but it's actually made me realize that I could probably do a little bit more. So being more present with my girlfriend, being more present with my family, understanding that I still can make progress while being a little bit more lenient with myself, even more than I was doing. And life goals in terms of business, proving to myself that I do deserve to be working with Christian. That is my motivation. And that's something that sort of drives me quite a lot. Like I know that what I was doing before being with coached by Christian was good, going really well. Obviously I provided a good service, but now it's just more of the fact of like I want to provide an even better service. I want to be an even better coach. And that's probably made me understand that I probably like coaching more than my goals have realigned differently in terms of my own bodybuilding goals, being more of a coach. Then again, my goals are still remain the same, but I get more of a kick from having my clients achieve their goals rather than me being achieving my goals. Even though I will hopefully get to my goals one day, I get more of a kick and more of a excitement when my clients achieve what they want to.
100%. Very similar to yourself, mate. Like being present, I think within bodybuilding, it's very easy to kind of get lost within when everyone around you is doing bodybuilding. You do kind of go off into this kind of mindset that, oh, this is just normal. And being more present with my family is definitely a massive thing. Going out for that lunch here and there, enjoying time with them, making more time for friends, not saying no to stuff because I'm scared it's going to, affect my progress. Some other stuff, like I wanted to get into another hobby, so I'm starting YouTube. I wanted to get into, video editing, upgrade the content. But the biggest thing for me now is to, now this diet phase is out of the way, I kind of wanted that to prove to myself, I do have that mindset of a good athlete in myself. And now I feel like it's my time to, prove myself as a coach. And I feel like with the YouTube series, being able to pump out some more, educational content, that kind of stuff, the drive for the rest of this year and this next coming year is just going to try and make my mark and prove to myself that not only can I be a good athlete, and I will carry that over within this off season to kind of demonstrate that I can be a good athlete, but I really do want to kind of demonstrate, I am a good coach as well.
Mate, buzzing to see it.
Yes, sir.
That's what I see. We're buzzing to see it. The other question was, oh, how did I react when Christian said to me about Team CBC? I've been through that.
Mhm.
Another one from Jasper: long and short term goals within bodybuilding. Mine are very, very simple. Short term goals: get on stage, very, very short term goals, and bring something that I'm proud of, which I already know that I will be. And long term goals: the goal is to become a pro. The goal is to become a pro at some point. But a very I think when that happens, when it will happen, if it happens, but there's no pressure on me getting there whatsoever, mate. If I don't become a pro, it's not going to ruin my life. But it'll be really, really cool to, because I love bodybuilding, mate. I love bodybuilding, and if I become a pro, then brilliant. But just be the sort of best bodybuilder. But you know what, mate? My long-term bodybuilding goal is to present a physique which I have in my mind, which I want to present on stage. That's my long-term goal. I have a physique that I sort of look at and I'm like, you know what? I'd be really happy one day to present that on stage. If I can do that and fulfill what I want to fulfill, then I'd be happy. Whether that's pro worthy or not.
Mhm. I think for myself, like short-term goal, even though it's not kind of short, but I would class this as more kind of short-term compared to my long-term, is like carry out a really successful off season because I've touched on it before. I've never really done a really extended off season. I've never really been able to commit to it. And I finally feel like I'm in a place where I have a supportive community. I have a great coach where I genuinely believe that I will be able to execute this the way I want it to. So have a really good off season and then take it to stage as a natty and see how I do there. And then long term, I want to build a community, be a great coach, but as well build a platform where, like now with the podcast, I get to speak to other individuals like yourself, show people like the other side of bodybuilding where, we aren't just robots, we're people, and like be able to make people feel more comfortable within their day to day and get a greater understanding of kind of what this sport is. Because I feel like
Very
there's so
true.
much misrepresentation within the industry of like, oh, we're just tough guys and we're just lifting weights every day, and it's
Mate,
just like
it's
there's
funny
so
you
much
say that
more.
because I was talking to my I was talking to my stepdad about it, and
Mm,
he's him seeing me through this journey. He said it's made me appreciate bodybuilding a lot more than what it is. Like people think, oh yeah, it's loads of steroids. It's just
mm,
people lifting weights and just they eat less and he went, you know what, mate? I really really appreciate how much dedication and it's actually quite a nice conversation. He was saying like 'cause people perceive bodybuilding to be this certain sport where you just go into the gym, lift a load of weight, look huge, diet down. When he likes to know the intricacies about it. So he was asking me about peak week and why do I fat load and why do I do, and he was going, there's a bit more to it, isn't there? And then next I was talking about like
yeah, yeah.
and he goes, you know what, mate, that's really, really fair play. 'Cause he sees he always goes, yeah, the dedication you put in, mate, and he's been there since I've started it, mate, and it's just nice that he's there, like he's appreciating more than what it is, just from a surface level, and he's asking questions about like why do I do that in the gym, why do I do this, and it's quite nice to see. And building that environment is something that we do need to build, I do
Mm,
believe, especially for younger generations, because they, like I mentioned,
100%, mate. That's the
their
goal.
first exposure to bodybuilding is going to be people that have been bodybuilding for years, and they've been there like, you need to do this. And I think having that approach, especially from a younger person who's been through the experiences that we've been through, I think it's really important to build a sort of basis where they can be like, it's actually all right to feel like shit sometimes. It's actually feel all right. It's actually all right to do this instead of that, and you haven't got to worry about this. You can just worry about the simple things that builds muscle and do that. And then next thing you know, the people are seeing progress without putting loads of pressure on themselves, and they're enjoying their life. And I think that's a really good sort of way to look at things.
Mm. All right. Is that all the questions, mate?
I had one about mindset. My phone's died. I think it's like
Okay.
how have you built a good mindset over prep? Perspective on things.
Mhm.
What's helped me massively is perspective on how other people perceive me. So, for example, if I was prepping for somebody, how would I want them to be around me for me to help them as much as possible? So, if somebody comes into a room and I go, "Oh, how are you, mate? You're right." They go, "No, not all right. Had a really bad day at the gym. Feel like this. Feel like that." That's going to sort of push me away, and I'm not really going to ask them how they're going to feel again because I don't really want that reaction. So,
I feel
even if
like
I
it's
do,
educating people. Like this is a main
yeah,
thing. Like letting them
yeah.
know why you might feel a certain way,
So yeah,
all that kind
mate.
of
So
stuff.
for example, mate, like yesterday, I had a really draggy day, and my nan was like, "Oh, you're right, Tom," and I was there like, "You know what, nan? Don't really feel too good
You
because
know what, Dad? Shut up.
you know, what, I don't really feel too good." But then again, I've done cardio. I'm in the back end of my prep, and you know what? Thank you so much for asking how I feel because now I feel really, really good. And she goes, "Oh, thank you." I was like, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And the next, I have to make a cup of tea, and she goes,
If it has almond
"Next thing,
milk in it.
the next thing you know, do you know what I mean?" They're like, what that does is it creates an environment now where she's like comfortable with talking around me, even though I might be in a bad mood. And
Yeah.
I want not a bad mood, but like even though I feel really draggy and
Yeah.
tired, she can still feel like
He
she can
still
talk to
feels
me.
comfortable to approach
Yeah.
you.
Because like what happens is they go, don't talk to him. No, no, no. He's in the front room.
He's
Don't
he's
talk to him.
he's in the trenches.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh,
But like, I want people to look back and be like, you know what, like he was feeling a bit draggy that day, but it didn't let it affect me,
no.
and I could still be myself around him, and and I know that it's all about perspective on things and how you look at things, and that's what I've sort of helped me massively in terms of mindset about how other people perceive me and how I can make myself more approachable depending on how I feel. And it's helped massively with my family where everyone can feel like they can still talk to me and still be themselves around me. They haven't got to change. They haven't got to like sort of change for me. Oh yeah, Tom's on prep, so I've got to change. Actual fact, I've got to be the one to change to actually think about how they're feeling. And people can't do that. And that's the hardest thing about prep, where you actually got to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, how can I actually change to be a better person to actually help my environment be better? And that's what I had to at the start of prep. I was like, how can I actually get to a point where I can be in a position where I can live with 8 people, and for them to not feel a certain way about me, and I can happily say that I've done that just because I was there. Like, you know what, I'm not going to let the people around me feel like shit, even though I feel like crap.
It's a
And
great approach, honestly.
yeah, and it's all about perspective, mate. Like how perspective on things, but also how they perceive you. And yeah, it's really nice, mate, knowing that you can wake up and then they get more invested into your goal because they know that you're going to wake up and now I have my mum talking to me while I do cardio in the morning because she knows that even though I'm draggy, I'm still going to bring a good positive environment where she can be like, I can sit with Tom while he watches YouTube and watches the rugby highlights, and I know that he's not going to be in a bad mood because I know he's going to be all right, even though he might feel draggy. And next thing you know, mate, your cardio goes better because your mum's there, or somebody's there. Do you know what I mean? And then it makes you feel even more positive. But that comes from you and how you perceive things and how you come across. And if you come across like a dick, guess what, mate? People aren't gonna, invest into you, or they're gonna, like I said, resent you in a way.
Mate, I think that's a great place to wrap up. Right. First of all, Tom, thank you for coming on the podcast, mate.
Thank
Love
you for having me,
I
bro.
really
Absolutely
appreciate
loved
it.
it.
For anyone listening, if you do listen to the podcast either on YouTube or Spotify, please take a picture, tag us both. Please make sure if you're watching on Spotify, rate us 5 stars. And as always, if you want any specific guests, DM me, message me. I'll have question boxes up for the next podcast. And yeah,